I'm going to start. So quiet. Okay, hello everyone. We'll be live in about 2 minutes from now. So this is Sasse, Photo Christian Sasse, broadcasting live from Vancouver, British Columbia again. I've been in Australia for some time doing astronomy, and now I'm back here into wildlife. I saw some beautiful wildlife also in Australia. But tonight I'm really excited. We're going to talk to WildCare in San Francisco. It's my favorite place in the US. I spent a lot of time there, so it's going to be a big pleasure. I'm going to be quiet now and just give you a preview and enjoy it. So I'll talk to you in a minute. And it's very nice to see you all. We're also going to go live on Periscope and on Facebook at the same time. So just hang on, please.
At WildCare. WildCare's mission is to help people live well with wildlife. Although you may not always see them, we share our lives and our habitat with wild animals. They may be beautiful, or you may consider them to be nuisances, but they are there, and our two worlds intersect on a daily basis. WildCare and our full cycle of programs sits right at that boundary where people and wildlife intersect. All of our programs are effective, practical, and humane. Each year, WildCare treats as many as 4,000 ill, injured, or orphaned wild animals of more than 200 different species in our wildlife hospital. We teach more than 40,000 Bay Area children and adults in our environmental education programs, and we provide hands-on assistance to residents and businesses facing wildlife dilemmas through our WildCare Solutions service. We also answer thousands of calls concerning human and wildlife interactions on our 24-hour Living with Wildlife hotline.
Hello everyone, it's nice to have you back here. So I've been in Australia a while. This is Sasse, Photo Christian Sasse, and I have got David Hancock again with me, which is really wonderful today. So we're going to go live to San Francisco, my favorite place apart from Vancouver, of course. I was 21 when I lived in Europe, and I went the first time to San Francisco. It was a wonderful time I had at Berkeley. And so it's a big honor now to go to a well, they don't call themselves a rehab center, and I learned why, and they'll tell you in a moment. They call themselves actually WildCare Hospital. And so I would like to introduce to you Alison and Melissa. Oh gosh, I got so many names to remember. So let me just put the, yeah, there we go. So it's Alison Hermance and Melissa Tofflemoyer. And I'm going to get them in live. 1 second. Let me just do this quickly. There we go. So hi, Alison, and hello, Melissa. How are you?
Hi, great, doing great. Wonderful to talk with you.
Well, it's wonderful to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining. And we're very lucky we're in the same time zone. As I said, it's my favorite place in San Francisco. So tell me, first of all, you are in San Rafael. So where is that, and what are you responsible for? Can you just tell us a little bit about the background of your hospital and why you call it a hospital?
Sure. So WildCare is a wildlife hospital and nature education center. We're located in San Rafael, California, which is in Marin County. It's about 20 minutes north of San Francisco, unless you're trying to go at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, in which case it takes a little longer. But so we're just north of San Francisco. We are the closest wildlife care center for all of Marin County, all of San Francisco County. And we take into our wildlife care center about 4,000 animals every single year from about 200 different species, with the goal of treating these animals with the medical care that they need and then releasing them back to the wild. The organization also has excellent environmental education programs. We have camps, we have a nature van, we have hikes with kids, we have our wonderful wildlife ambassadors, including Sequoia, our northern spotted owl. Yes, hello. She knows her name. And we have a whole cycle of programs that in the organization all work together with the goal of teaching people to live better with wildlife. We're all going to come into contact with wildlife all the time in any given moment, and it is just a fact that animals and humans share our environment. And the work of WildCare's programs is to teach people how to navigate that boundary in a healthy and humane and lovely way for everyone.
Well, thank you. I mean, that is quite stunning. I mean, the question that's on everybody's mind is, how are you actually funded?
It is a very good question. So we are almost entirely funded by private donations from individuals that care about the work that WildCare does and provide us with generous funding. We do have some for-fee programs. Our education programs, for instance, do have a small fee associated with them. Our camps have a small fee. Our solution service, which helps people deal with nuisance wildlife, also has a small fee. But by far, the vast majority of our budget, which is about $3 million at this point, is brought in by individuals that care about the work that we do. I think a lot of people think that an organization like WildCare is supported by the government, and we're not at all. An infinitesimal percentage of our budget is provided by any sort of government entity. So we're lucky that we have incredibly generous supporters that make the work possible.
Yeah, Alison, that's rather interesting. You're talking about a budget here of $3 million, which seems a lot, wow. But I think at the same time, if you're talking about 4,000 animals a year, and also I think, I don't remember how many volunteers you had, 50 or so, is that correct?
Oh no, we have about 500 volunteers.
500. You see, I was off by a zero.
We have a small staff of about 25 people, 25, maybe 28, not sure. And over 500 active volunteers.
500.
Well, that's just group of dedicated people.
Yeah, that's just an astronomical error. It's okay. It's just a zero.
Anyway. A lot of fish mice. Yeah, and a lot of fish mice. You're right. Exactly.
And who's that little friend that you have there? Let us know a little bit about him. Thank you.
Melissa.
Okay, so this is Sequoia. She's 13 years old. This is our northern spotted owl, one of 3 subspecies of spotted owl. She comes to us from actually larkspur. We got her when she was a branchling. She fell from a nest, and on the way down, she injured her left wing and basically damaged the tendon so bad that she doesn't have silent flight. So, and the reason they're threatened is because of a couple of things. One, as we are moving more into their environment and they're coming more into ours, we have to worry about rodenticides, insecticides, all those pesticides. We also have to worry about habitat destruction, because northern spotted owls, as you know, like that nice big dead forest with those big redwood trees, which is where she gets her name. Right. And then, of course, there is the barred owl that has come into their territory and basically outcompeted them because they are more aggressive, and they also breed every year, and northern spotted owls don't do that.
Well, one of the questions I have you got associated with your organization a captive breeding facility where you're trying to breed up some of these birds that are perhaps not quite healthy enough to release because they got maybe a bit of a dingled wing or something? And do you work with somebody else on that aspect as well?
It would be very cool if we did, but at this point, WildCare does not have a captive breeding program. It would certainly be something that we're a very urban center. We are literally smack dab in the middle of downtown San Rafael. And so we are, it's an urban setting, and we're a very small facility. We're actually in the process of looking for a new facility that will hopefully allow us to expand. But we don't have the room, we don't have the space, we don't have the requirements that we would need in order to do captive breeding. But interestingly, Sequoia was used in a genome project through the University of California at Davis, because Sequoia, she's so pretty. Sequoia is a northern spotted owl from an area where northern spotted owls have lived forever, right? And we know for a fact that she had fallen from her nest and has been in care at WildCare since before the time that the barred owl started showing up in our area of Northern California. So we know that she is a genetically pure northern spotted owl. So they took some blood, which I'm sure was super fun for everyone involved. And that was not you, no. And they have scoped her entire genome. So we have that information. And so she's provided a very interesting, scientific role there.
Good. So I noticed behind you, you've got a whole shelf of MERS.
Oh, we do have a shelf of MERS. Why? Doesn't everyone?
Yeah, well, we have, of course, lots of MERS up here, but they don't often come on the inside passage around Vancouver. There are some, but the big numbers are on the outer coast. But you, of course, have those islands right off San Francisco where there's a big breeding, the Phalerons, a big breeding colony. So do you get a lot of seabirds brought in?
Mm-hmm. We do, and it's very interesting. So we get, on an average year, we'll get a dozen or so MERS into the wildlife hospital, and then every few years, something will happen to the ocean currents off our coast.
El Nino.
Sometimes it's an El Nino. It doesn't always seem to be associated with an El Nino or a La Nina. It seems to be sort of random. But something will change with the currents, and we will get a massive influx of MERS. 3 years ago, I think we got 120 of them. Ooh. And the currents had apparently changed to a point that, this is the hypothesis anyway, the currents had changed, and the current where the fish were, there was a warm layer above where the MERS normally feed, and the fish were being pushed lower, and so they, for some reason, weren't able to get to them. And so we were getting flooded with emaciated MERS coming into WildCare. You know, it's really amazing to work here because we have a lot of raptors. We treat a lot of raptors of all different species in the wildlife hospital, but we also get so many other different kinds of animals, and those MERS would be a very good example. We work very closely with another organization that is more able to care for the pelagic birds. It's called International Bird Rescue. So we generally get the MERS in, we triage them, and then we're able to transfer them off to International Bird Rescue. But we get a whole bunch of them in. And then, of course, if we have an oil spill, then you get inundated with too many animals, too many species.
That was one of my early reasons for coming back to California, because I actually went, part of my early years, I went to school in Santa Barbara. And then because I had been a rehabber back in the early 50s, a little bit before you, I had a lot of MERS and puffins and guillemots and rhinoceros auklets. When they had the big Santa Barbara oil spill, I got called down there right off the bat to try and help them get that set up. And then I got, so it was kind of exciting. But you have bigger populations because of your proximity to a big oil field there. You have a real high risk of getting a lot of birds all of a sudden.
Although, interestingly, the last oil spill that we had was in 2007, and that was the Costco Busan spill. And that was a tanker, not at all related to the refinery that we have over in Point Richmond. It was a tanker full of this hideous, disgusting crude oil that ran into one of the piers of the San Francisco Bay Bridge. And it got cracked open. And that's been, in my tenure, I've been at WildCare for 16 years, astonishingly. And in my tenure, that was the worst oil spill that we have ever had. But that was a huge, massive disaster. WildCare is a longstanding member of the Oiled Wildlife Care Network, which is a California organization that works with all of the different wildlife care organizations in order to have a very controlled and organized response to oil spills when they happen. So.
Well, you can only be thankful that you haven't had another big release offshore on one of the wells, because that was a big disaster at the time.
Yeah, there was another one that we get occasionally. We haven't had it for years and years, though. It's apparently a sunken tanker off the coast called the Lukenbach or something like that. And occasionally the currents will shift and the thing moves and a huge burst of oil will come up out of it. Pretty horrifying. They had those for a few years. We haven't had that for a couple of years. You know, last for Costco Busan, we got a lot of water birds. Of course, that was the majority. We got thousands of water birds coming in, but we actually got 2 oiled red tails as well.
Oh, really? Well, they're probably down scavenging a beach myrrh or something like that.
Exactly what happened, and got themselves completely covered in the oil. And then, like the water birds, they try to groom it off themselves, so they make themselves sick, and then they get their feathers all stuck together, and it just it's pretty horrifying. It's just a catastrophe across the board for wildlife.
And we occasionally get eagles the same way here.
Oh,
They get, yeah, it's a
course you
problem. And they have a lot. They lost 900 eagles, I think it was, in Alaska when they had the Exxon Valdez. 900 eagals. Yeah,
That is
it was
horrifying.
It was, yeah, yeah. So that's one of the reasons we're very much against having an oil terminus here in Vancouver Harbor for the pipeline, because I mean the devastation can be absolutely catastrophic, and there would be no recovering from it in this enclosed Salish Sea that we have here. So,
Right,
yeah.
and you look at the Gulf of Mexico, and I mean that is, what more need do we say?
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned you get a lot of raptors, so probably a lot of red tails, and what else?
Yeah, so we say that at WildCare, we treat the animals you see in your backyard, if you live in Northern California, and all the way up close to you guys too. And we treat the animals that you see when you're out hiking and driving as well. And so we get a lot of the red-tailed hawks coming in. We get a lot of the red-shouldered hawks coming in. They really like the oak woodlands that we have a lot of in our area here. So you get a lot of those guys. We get a large number of great horned owls. We get screech owls. We get the saw-whet owls. I'm always astonished when we get the spotted owls, but there are several very successful nesting pairs in the area. So we have had babies come out and come fall on the ground, and then we put them back in for a couple of different years at the same nest. We get harriers, we get sharpshins, we get Cooper's hawks. I mentioned saw-whet owls. We get the occasional pygmy owl coming in. So, you know, big diversity of raptors for sure. Kestrels, lots of kestrels. Barn owls, of course.
In my earlier years, one of the things that I used to do, I would come down as I was learning to be a commercial pilot. I'd come down to California. There was a number of zoology students at one of the San Francisco universities, and we all go out onto the desert just east of San Francisco, and we'd be looking for raven nests, but we'd also be looking for prairie falcons and trapping them, because we were all falconers at that time in our young life. And that's, of course, one of the main routes that many biologists have gone through. They started off as falconers, and that kind of set the scene for them to become biologists, because you get an interesting insight. Same thing, if people get brought up around a rehab center or a hospital like yours, it's a wonderful foundational training for becoming a wildlife biologist, because you get to work with the animals that most people just never ever get to see and handle.
It's incredible. And we have a very, very robust, volunteer program at WildCare in general, but we have a wonderful program for young people, age 12, and then once you're 15, you start as an adult volunteer in the Wildlife Hospital. And we have we have the most incredible youth volunteers. They are so lovely and competent, and so many of them start at 12 years old and now are working as veterinarians, or they're at the UC Davis Veterinary School, or you know, it really is a fabulous launching pad. We have a really excellent internship program as well. It's a volunteer internship program at WildCare, and that's hands-on with the animals 24 hours a week. You're really getting an intensive experience working with these animals.
I just want to sorry, there's so many questions coming in. It's very nice. First of all, I also want to say hello to all those on Periscope. I'm just reading your comments. We're having difficulties to follow all the channels at the same time. So thank you for tuning in. But I've just seen a comment here on Periscope, which is very interesting. Have you ever had an albino owl?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Not to my knowledge. So certainly not during my tenure in the last 16 years. I know the Native Bird Connection, which is a group that does educational programs here in the Bay Area, does have a leucistic redtail, who is a gorgeous, gorgeous bird. She's not an albino. And we've gotten, interesting, we had blonde raccoons, so they were leucistic raccoons as well. But seeing a true albino of any wild species seems really, really rare to me. We'll get blonde squirrels occasionally, but the albinos, no. An albino owl would be a real, or even a leucistic owl of any variety would be really interesting. That would be cool.
Yeah. And I actually, to go back to your comment, that's actually how I got started in this. I was in Colorado. I just moved here. And I was sitting in a lecture, and my previous boss was doing a lecture with raptors. And my mom turned to me and she goes, you know, I think you'd be really good at this. And I go, I think I would. And so I started volunteering there, and having that passion made me go back to school and get my degree. Yeah.
Oh, good. So you're a wildlife biologist now, are you?
Well, I'm an environmental science.
Environmental science.
With that concentration in fish and wildlife management.
Yeah. Oh, excellent.
No, and it's really true that volunteering at a center like WildCare, and just a Google search will let you know if there is a wildlife care center near you that you can volunteer. But volunteering is absolutely the best way to get on the track to become a biologist or to become a staff member at an organization like ours. So it's a great launching point.
A lot of technicians also take advantage of the practical experience of how to handle birds when they get to work as volunteers at the various rehab or your hospital center. It's a practical way to get experience for being a technician in the wildlife field. And there's a lot of technical people needed in the wildlife field.
No question.
Yeah.
No question.
Okay, I'm going to throw a few questions in now. We're going to go right across the board. So the first one is from Nature Scooper. Do they get snowy owls there in the rehab center, or we call it animal hospital, right?
I wish. Oh, I would love to get snowy owls. We do not. At our location in Northern California, we don't get snowy owls. Apparently there was one very lost migrant sighted one time a number of years ago, but it would be an animal that it's seriously on my bucket list. Do you have snowies up there?
Yes. Yeah. We don't get them every year, but we get them about half the years, and maybe a little less. Yeah. And then we'll get
on those years that you have one. I would love to see a snowy owl, but no, we unfortunately do not get the snowy owls. We also don't have great grays here, and that's another one I'd love to see.
Yeah, we get a few of those as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so amazing. So
The next question is from Kit, and Kit, of course.
Hi, Kit.
From Kit from Redding, California, where they had this horrible fire, by the way. So, and she's asking, can one tour your facility? I think that's rhetorical, but anyways.
Yes, you absolutely can. So WildCare is a nature education center, and animals like Sequoia are called our wildlife ambassadors, and they are non-releasable former patients. As Melissa said, that because of their condition, something has rendered them non-releasable back to the wild. So we have our center and our courtyard and museum that has a number of different animals, including Sequoia, on display from 9 to 5, 7 days a week. You can come visit us. The Wildlife Hospital, where we take care of the injured and orphan patients with the goal of releasing them back to the wild, is not open to the public, and that is for the reasons that the animals just can't handle the stress of being peeked at and peered at and all of that. So the Wildlife Hospital is off, but we do have a very nice courtyard and a very nice museum that you can come and see Sequoia. We also have a non-releasable peregrine falcon. We have a kestrel. We have a gorgeous turkey vulture. Love the turkey vulture, Vladimir. And absolutely, our website is discoverwildcare.org, and you can get our address and visiting hours, again, 9 to 5, 7 days a week at that website.
Let me comment. The lady that's calling in, Kit, and her good friend Terry Lillier, they have done an incredible rescue last year on eagles. The eagle nest on one of their golf courses collapsed, and the chicks came down. They were sent literally overnight, one night, to a rehab center, and they built an artificial platform a few feet off the ground, and in the morning they got the two chicks back out there, and the parents came in and readopted them in this new platform just about 20 feet off the ground, or maybe not even quite that high. And so they did quite a remarkable thing of getting this bird back into the wild almost instantly. One night it was in captivity, and that probably bode really well for not having to recondition it again. The bird hardly got to meet people. It was back out in the wild. Yeah.
We have a very robust Raptor Reunite program at WildCare because it is, so I don't know, we all grew up hearing that if you touched a baby bird, the parents would reject it. That is completely and totally not
nonsense. Total nonsense.
How's he doing? Is he getting hot?
Oh, we're just gonna spray.
Oh, okay. She's getting a little hot. So total nonsense. And so it is absolutely possible to return a baby wild animal of any species whatsoever back to their parents' care. And we always say at WildCare that we, in every way, would prefer them to stay with their parents. So we have this wonderful Raptor Reunite team. If I'm a standing member, I'm the administrative member. Hello. Are you feeling better now?
Yes.
Excellent.
She needed to drink water.
Yes. And we get the baby raptors into the wildlife hospital that have fallen out of their nest. And I don't know if you have the video, Christian.
Yes.
Yes.
And I will definitely show it. That's a good point. Whilst I do that, I'm going to give you another question. That's sure. Quite a challenging question. Mac Lady is asking, who would win a territorial fight? Owl, hawk, eagle, or falcon? Maybe David Hacker could also jump in here.
I always get the question in a majority of my programs. The kids are like, "Who would win a battle royale?" And my answer to that is whoever got in the best shot first.
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer because they can all win. It just depends in particular the time of day and the circumstances under which one of them is flushed. And also another really big key in determining that is the one that has the young most needing defending at that time. If one of them has young, they will have much more motivation just because they happen to have young. Yeah, and that will make a big difference. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Defending young is probably more important than having a dinner.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. That's really funny.
Yeah.
It's funny that you get that from kids.
I and then they give me another scenario. Okay, what happens if it's a falcon and an eagle? And I'm like, it doesn't make a difference.
It's whoever gets the good shot in first and has the most motivation. That makes a lot of sense. Absolutely.
Yeah, Alison, what I'm going to quickly do is I'm going to just show some of the, not in a particular order, so sorry, because I don't know which is in which order, but maybe you could just comment on them and then we'll carry on with the questions. Is that okay?
Sure.
So
Sounds good.
Let me just put you in a corner here, if I can, and
what do you mean a corner?
While he's bringing that up, you're on the north side of San Francisco. Most of the condors are on the south side. But do you ever get California condors brought in there?
We have not. We get a lot of turkey vultures, but we've never had a condor come in.
Yeah.
That's another one that would be a really cool thing. They don't get as far north as we are, so we don't see them. This video here is actually a box of baby barn owls.
Should have done them in order.
These guys came in. Their nest had come down. I can't remember the exact scenario with why the nest had come down. And you can tell
yes, that was the second
they're all different sizes, and that's because barn owls, of course, have their asynchronous hatching. So you'll have one that hatches, and then the next day another one will hatch, and then the next day. And so you have the little itty bitty guy down to the lower right. You can see him. He doesn't even have the beginning of his facial disc yet. And then the larger one in the back. And these guys all came in, and I believe they were then hacked out into a barn owl box, and that did not have chicks and had parents that were taking that. I think actually only had one chick, and the parents were taking care of that bird. So we put these guys in as adoptees. So that worked out really well. Cool to get
this Western screech owl spent 5 days.
I keep hearing that there can be 9 or 10 young barn owls, and I know they do get that many eggs. But I personally, I've been to quite a few barn owl nests. I've never seen anywhere near that number. Usually 4, 5, or 6 is about it.
Yeah,
okay,
this tends to be the more common.
Can you just comment? Comment quickly on the next one, and then I'll have it run.
Sure, yeah. So this video is actually of a little screech owl that was caught in someone's chimney. And this is a very, very common thing to have happen with screech owls because they're cavity nesters. And when you have a chimney that has, this particular chimney had a kind of a scoopy thing and then a hole at the top. And the owl had come to investigate to see if it might be a reasonable place to set up her nesting area.
Here he's
and so she dove in and then proceeded to get gets stuck.
He flies and
this is
perches
after
great.
she's recovered in the
However,
wildlife
he's
hospital, and
obviously
you
not
can
used
tell
to
she can
rope
fly really
perches
well,
that
but she's
swing,
never
so
balanced
he's
on
having
a
a hard
rope
time
swing
staying
before.
balanced on this one.
So we're having a hard time balancing.
WildCare's
But,
Wildlife
she was
Hospital
stuck
admits a
in
number of screech
the,
owls that have fallen down
fireplace
chimneys and
of
gotten
these
trapped.
people's house for like
Here,
3
our
days
wildlife
before they were
solution
finally able
specialist
to get her
climbs
out.
onto the roof of the
This is
home
our
where the owl
technician
was rescued
putting a
to
cap on the
install
chimney,
a
so
chimney
he's
cap.
covering over
This will prevent
that
this
hole
owl
where
or
the
any
owl
other
or
wildlife
another
from
animal is
falling.
going to come and investigate, and then not realizing how deep it is. And there she is after her recovery. You can see her little tufts. And so this was a really good example of all of the ways WildCare's programs work together, that the wildlife hospital helped the owl, and then our solution service capped the chimney so it wouldn't happen again. And now here we are with the people that rescued her, letting her go again. So Melanie will let her go in just a second here. And such, the releasing of a wildlife patient is always the best part of all of the work that we do. And they reported, I kind of got to know them fairly well, and they reported that they had seen the owl for a couple of years later. So she went back to her home territory, which is just a neat thing. But that happens all the time, that you have these cavity nesting owls that find their way into chimneys. WildCare does a lot of advocacy, and it's both legal advocacy, where we're trying to get laws passed that help wildlife, and just basic knowledge advocacy. Yes, you can put a baby bird back with its parents. That's a really good example of this. Cap your chimney so cavity nesting birds like screech owls don't end up in dire trouble and have to spend 3 days without food and water before they can be rescued. And that's another good advocacy issue. Not using rat poison is an extremely good advocacy issue that WildCare does a lot of work with. We have done testing for more than 10 years to determine exactly how much of how many of our patients are exposed to rat poison and rodenticides. And it turns out that 76% of the rodent-eating predators that come into the wildlife hospital for any reason, 76% of them come in with some, yes, Christian, very nice, come in with some trace of rat poison in their blood. So that's a shocking number. It may not be enough to kill them, but it's still enough to make them very ill or impact their lives in whatever ways anticoagulant meds do. But so that is another example of an advocacy issue that WildCare works very, very hard on.
That's a couple of funny-looking birds on the right side there.
Birds, yes.
Yeah.
There's our barn owls again. Look at those guys again. They're so cool. There's the little one.
And they sound like a horror movie.
They do. They make wonderful noises. They're just marvelous little creatures. So good.
Okay.
It's funny. It's such a neat thing to work in the wildlife hospital. Christian, let me see if I can. There's our screech owl again.
Oh, sorry. I showed them already. One sec.
Let's see. I should have. Pretty photo of barn owls in care. That's in our large aviary. They're beautiful. I'm wondering where the reunite video is. It should be in there somewhere. If it's not, that's totally okay. I kind of started talking about the reunite process, where the baby hawks and owls go back to their parents' care, and we have a wonderful volunteer arborist tree climber that does the climbing up into the tree to put the baby back. Oh yeah, here we go. So this is actually it. So this is a baby red-tailed hawk that fell out of her nest. It was a gigantic pine tree. So here she is in care, and the medical staff did x-rays, did a full exam, determined that she's completely healthy. So here we're feeding her, and then in a couple of hours we're going to take her out, and we're going to go ahead and do the reunite with her. But isn't she beautiful? Such a beautiful, fluffy little thing. And she's very hungry. Here's our arborist climbing a gigantic pine tree. So it's a very specialized skill to get that. And the parent, of course, red tails are flying overhead going, what the heck is going on? Because there's another baby up there. There's another baby that hadn't fallen. Here's our youngster coming out of the kennel that he came from in WildCare, putting him into the bag that he'll go up, the soft bag that he'll use as his elevator to get up to Jim, who's climbing the tree. That's me, shorter hair. And you hook that onto a rope and you send it up with the little baby in it. And Jim is up there. You can see this is zoomed in considerably. There he is. And we ended up, what happened, these red tails must have been really bad nest builders, because they just had like 4 sticks and they were just kind of falling. Here's Mama Red Tail with the other baby that was up there. So we decided to give them a wicker basket. Ignore that, but that's the wicker basket right there. Jim comes back down, and in the next shot, is Mama jumping into her really gorgeous new apartment, right? We got her a really nice apartment, got her a basket nest. And so she was spotted then for this pet. That was a couple of years ago. And then over the next couple of years, they've continued to use that basket as a nest. So really, really effective, the reunite process that we have. This is a video from our wildlife hospital of our medical staff looking at an x-ray. This is a red tail that came in. You can see it's his left leg, but the leg on the right is broken and healed. It's a healed fracture. And it looks like it was a pellet that went through the leg, up through and broke it. And that's the pellet lodged still in there. And that's the calcified fracture that she's demonstrating there. So that's what it's supposed to look like. And then that is the broken one. But it had mostly healed or partially healed by the time the bird was rescued. So we weren't able to re-break it or do anything to actually get that healed completely well again. But there's no reason the bird wouldn't have use of his leg, right? Because the muscles and tendons had healed around it. So here is the actual bird, and we're going to do here in a second, she's going to show some of the physical therapy that we did on this hawk. That we were able to get that full range of motion back into the leg. So she's showing now where the fracture site is on the actual bird instead of in the x-ray and the radiograph. You notice she's got that heavy glove. He may be injured, but he has talons, and that is here's the physical therapy work that they were doing. And obviously you pay attention to the bird, you do the maximum you can without causing stress or too much stress. And eventually the bird did get the full range of motion back. I think I have a clip in here, I'm not sure if I have it or not, of him being able to perch and use the leg again and be able to grab. Because of course a raptor hunts with his feet. So he's going to be able to, is this before? I can't remember if this is before a raptor. Oh yeah, no, here we go. Yep, that's the injured leg, and you can see he's doing just fine, grabbing and holding on. So we did some prey testing with this bird, perch testing to make sure that after all of the work that we had done with the bird, he'd made a full recovery. And here we go at release day. And here's Melanie. She's going to go ahead and send him off back into the wild. And it is just such an incredible experience to see a bird that was so down and miserable and had that, fragment in his leg and the broken leg. And then to see him back in the wild is just such an incredible experience. And it's the best thing about what we do at WildCare. It really is that moment of letting them free again. This is our rodenticide map. This is a map that shows over the course of, I think, a 1-year period where maybe a couple of years, where the animals that had been exposed to rat poison had come from. So you notice rural areas, it's going to be less. People tend to use poison as an easy solution in the more urban and suburban areas of the San Francisco Bay Area. And I think that's consistently true across any city area. You have access to open garbage. You have food of all varieties. So you have a burgeoning rodent population. And these animals that eat rodents, they're nature's way of providing natural rodent control. They go and then eat the rodents that have eaten the poison and end up poisoned themselves. It's called secondary poisoning, and it is really, really a major problem. We're very lucky in California that there have been a number of laws passed, in big part with the help of WildCare's testing data from the Wildlife Hospital. A number of laws that have been passed that have restricted the access of consumers to these really, really deadly poisons. And WildCare wants we want so strongly to tell people that the only way to get rid of a nuisance animal problem is to get rid of what's attracting the nuisance animal, right? So if you have a rodent problem, it's because you have a food source available. And if you get rid of the food source, you'll be able to get rid. We did a rat poison take back day at with the local sanitation company, Marin Sanitary. They're marvelous. And so we just sent out a call. It's like, open up your cabinets. If you've got some of this horrible stuff lying around, then
when I looked at that, I thought that was the fast food counter for human beings. It looks like
brightly colored. It looks like candy. Well, and that's the problem with these poisons, is you end up with young children eating them too. Children and pets also run into problems with rodenticides.
Exactly my point. The difference in packaging is not different at all. I mean,
And here is a red tail, and you can see the telltale. So these rodenticides in question that cause the secondary poisoning, they're called anticoagulants. And that means that they stop the blood from clotting. And so one of the telltale symptoms of an animal that is suffering from anticoagulant poisoning is that bleeding from the eyes and from the nares and from the anus as well. So it is a really it's a horrifying way to die for sure. And this bird had probably been living in an area where people were poisoning a lot of rats. And so every meal she got probably had a dose of this poison in it. And it bioaccumulated to the point that it killed her. So you can really see the menace of this stuff to wildlife. So really glad to be able to get the message out there. Sorry, I have a whole bunch of those pictures.
Okay.
Yeah. What else do I have in there?
I was impressed with how you'd reconstructed the nest for that red tail. I mean, it's one of the things that we do here as well. We tend to build the nest for bald eagles because they have an even bigger problem. Their challenge is finding a tree that'll hold their 6-7 foot across nest. It's a little easier to find a tree to hold a red tail nest, but one of the big challenges here is we have a lot of eagles. We just have decimated the big trees, so we've often got involved in building bigger nest platforms, structures of branches, so that they can build on top of that.
Yeah, the platforms, I've seen those. This is a baby northern spotted owl. So I don't know if it's hopefully not as blurry on your side as it is on mine, but this is so Sequoia here to my right is this is the baby fluffy version, and this was another little one that had come in and had been checked out just fine in the wildlife hospital, and so wasn't injured, and we were able to take this little guy back and put him back into his parents' care as well. And then we have spotters, nest spotters, that then go out later and make sure that the parents are feeding the baby, and if it happens, you can see his ear. Isn't that cool? So cool. That's awesome. And make sure that the baby's being fed, and if the baby isn't, then we send our arborist, tree climber, wonderful volunteer back up and get them back and raise them in the wildlife hospital if we need to. Retraction on the wing is good. You can see that. You can see the little owls like, what the heck are you doing? Why are you doing this?
It looks like he's been put in the dryer too long.
He does. He's super fluffy. He's super fluffy. But I was going to say, with the eagle nesting platforms, I'm sure that's got to be a real project, and there's probably people that do that a lot. We have a program of WildCare called the Hungry Owl Project, which is a marvelous, marvelous program started by some volunteers about 20 years ago that actually builds and sells barn owl boxes to provide habitat for barn owls, giving people an alternative to the use of deadly rat poisons, of rodenticides. And so Hungry Owl Project, their website is hungryowl.org, and you can check them out. And if your property is suitable for barn owl habitat, you too can have a nesting barn owl family in your property. This is our little spotted owl again. That's that same little baby that we just saw in the wildlife hospital. You can see Jim's rope hanging in the front. That's the blue rope. And
I want to interject a comment about the barn owl project. It's a double good thing. Not only do you help by putting the owls out there catch more rodents, but you also mean you don't have to put as much poison out there to kill a whole bunch of other things. So it has a doubly positive impact on things.
It's so incredibly positive, and it's wonderful how effective it is. A family of barn owls can eat 3,000, 4,000 rodents in a year. So if you have a barn owl box, you are putting a major dent. Putting a major dent in the rodent population, which is awesome. So if you're interested, visit hungryowl.org, and you can fill out our questionnaire to see if your property is appropriate for an owl box, and it's a really cool thing. We're watching the video now, and maybe we'll flip through it again, of that little spotted owl. We put him back up on a branch, and he started making his way over to his mother, and you can actually see her feeding him. So here he is making his way up the branch. The spotted owls don't nest in boxes, so unfortunately we can't create boxes and create habitat for the spotted owls. They are fairly picky about their habitat. They like those old growth redwood forests. But this reunite was really interesting. It was actually, sorry, my computer is doing something on. It was actually in just a backyard, and these people, there's Mom, and she has a part of a wood rat, which is of course a northern spotted owl's favorite cuisine. If you watch closely, you can see she tears off a bite and then she hands it over to her little one. It was wonderful. So we all were in tears. We're down below watching this happen, and what an amazing opportunity that is. And this is another view of her feeding him. What a cool thing. And according to the family that owns the house, the reunite was completely successful. Those babies fledged, and just so great. What a neat thing.
Yeah.
So what is your personal favorite bird? Everybody who gets involved in birds has a favorite. What is yours? Melissa's?
Well, the politically correct answer is the one I'm holding.
Yes, good answer. Yes.
But it's the turkey vulture.
Yes.
Yeah. It's hard not to get an identity with one or two because you're just kind of attached to them. Maybe because they've given you more back at that opportunity. Maybe they needed more or whatever it is. But usually people get identifying with one bird more than another.
Yep. I would say my favorites are the turkey vulture, the pied-billed grebe, and the American robin.
Oh, the robin is a challenge. My goodness.
Lovely.
Wow.
When they're little, they're so beautiful. With their little spotty chests and their bright, bright eyes and their great big gaping mouths, they're marvelous.
And I like the acorn woodpecker too.
Yep.
Those are my
Love
favorite.
the acorn woodpecker too. Yep.
They're pretty fun.
Absolutely. I love the screech owls. We talk about in the Wildlife Hospital how the level of aggression in a raptor species tends to be sort of an inverse proportion to how big they are, right? Because your great horned owls and your golden eagles, they're kind of like, all right, this is fine. They're kind of calm. It's all good. Then you get your screech owls in, and they are just like little fluffy balls of menace. And they
revenge.
Of revenge. Yes, we say that the default expression for a screech owl is disgruntled. Because they always have just this disgruntled expression on their face, and they clack their beaks and they wave their talons at you, and they're very they're marvelous.
So what you're saying is they follow human beings the same way.
Okay, I'm going to.
They think they're an eagle in their mind.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I've got so many questions coming in, which is really wonderful. I wanted to thank all of you, YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope, for sending so many questions. So I have to be a little bit selective now. So if I can't call out your question, just forgive me. I'm going to look for questions that are a bit more challenging. Here's one from Diana Tyler. I'm very concerned about the environmental rules that are being cancelled. Can you comment on that, please?
I mean, what can you say?
Probably need 2 more hours.
We need 2 more hours for that. It's absolutely horrifying, and the damage that's being done now will reverberate for decades to come, and it's horrifying. What can we say, Peter? What do you think?
Yes.
Yeah, there's no easy answer. No. I mean, the day that the new president got into office, the first thing he did was start to cancel the EPA regulations. I mean, it's bizarre how he could turn the world around so negatively. It's unbelievable.
It's just mind-boggling. And what I don't get is the short-sightedness of it.
Yeah.
And how a temporary gain from, say, oil revenues from drilling off the coast of California or where, whatever. A temporary gain for coal or what it does in no way make sense when you compare to the damage that's going to do to the environment over the long term. It's just
and especially what I find so so encouraging is to see California's renewable energy. I mean, I was a big, I did a lot of renewable engineer as an engineer in wind and solar, so I always find it very, very encouraging when I had to come to California, and then you see this double backflip now going in back so much. So, I don't
really, really is. And I think the best thing that we can do as proponents of the environment is pay attention. We can't put our heads in the sand and just hope it's all going to go away, because it isn't. Pay attention to who's voting on what, and vote. Get out. Vote. Vote for people that believe like you do that the environment and the animals with which we share it are worth saving. So get out and vote. Do not even question that, and you make a difference by doing that. And follow legislation, speak to your congressperson, pay attention. You have
yes,
to
and vote, right? That's the thing.
Vote. Yep.
Okay, so let me get on again here. If an injured, that's from Sherry. Yes, and that's a general rehab question. If an injured animal was found a long ways away, do they have a means of transporting them back to their location? And when they release the healthy animals, do they release them where they were originally found?
It's a very good question. Yeah, we actually are required by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife regulations to release animals where they came from. So generally within a mile of where an animal was found. And that makes sense if it's, say, an adult raccoon or a northern spotted owl. You need to, that animal knows its home territory, right? He's like, I come from here and this is where I sleep on Wednesday nights and this is what I eat on Tuesday mornings. And this is a known habitat, so it's absolutely imperative that you get the animal back to the animal's home territory. In a situation, we did have one example that always makes me laugh is a person that lives in Marin County, not far from the WildCare Center. They went on a camping trip in southern Utah, and apparently a chipmunk got into their car, and they didn't know it. And this has happened multiple times. I just remember this particular case because I'm from Utah originally. And the chipmunk had gotten in and they had finally noticed that their power bars were being nibbled. So they were like, okay, something's in the car with us. So they got to have a heart trap, a cage trap, and they put power bars in it because apparently the little guy liked power bars. And turns out it was, I just totally drew a blank on the type of chipmunk, but it's a chipmunk that's not native to Northern California. And so we ended up putting out a call for either someone that was taking a trip to Utah that would be willing to take, and the people knew where it had happened. They'd been camped in the same location the whole time while they were there. And so they're like, well, he came from this campground, so we can get him back there. And it turned out that a person had a private plane, and he was like, I'm actually doing a flight up to Kanab, and maybe I can take him up. And so we ended up doing that. But it's absolutely, it wouldn't do the animal any favors, and it wouldn't do the other animals in the environment any favors to release a non-native species into an area where he didn't originally come from. So definitely in the best interest of everybody to get him back. And we've had migratory songbirds that have ended up getting a lift farther down the coast. So if all the cedar waxwings have flown past, and we'll watch the birding apps and say, okay, cedar waxwings are being spotted down here, so we'll drive, somebody will volunteer to drive down. That's one of the reasons we have so many volunteers, is that transport is something that we do, and that's something that we certainly make available to our patients.
Yeah, that's really impressive because the Bay Area is so big. So I'm going to choose Maxine Wirtz's question here because I think it's something that you wanted to talk about, and you just that you previously touched on. Aren't there other means to get rid of rodents? Talking about poison, of course, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So there's definitely a sense in most people's minds that there's just a huge rodent problem and you have to kill them somehow to get rid of them. And what WildCare really wants to encourage is a change of attitude, that you have rodents because there's something that's attracting them to your property. So it's either food, water, or shelter. And if you have, spilled birdseed on the ground, or you have a lot of ivy that provides great harborage for rodents to run around, they love to have a protected area to run around. If you have a water source in a really dry area, you are going to have animals attracted to that. Rather than poisoning, because you can poison as many animals as you want to, but the fact is, if you have a food source or a shelter source or a water source, you are going to continue to have those animals showing up for that food source, water source, or shelter. So changing that attitude of all of the rats, we need to kill them all, to, wait a minute, why do I have rats showing up? Oh, I live next to a restaurant that doesn't close the lids on their garbage bins. Well, why don't I talk to the owners of the restaurants and work on getting enclosed garbage bins? All of a sudden, you know what? You don't have an incredibly available food source anymore, and you have fewer rodents. So it's this idea of eliminating what is attracting a nuisance animal of any variety is the only long-term solution to that problem. You can, trap, you can poison, certainly not something we recommend in any way, shape, or form. You can use all sorts of lethal methods, but the fact is, there will always be more rodents as long as there is something to attract the rodents. So make that mindset shift and think about, what can I do that will eliminate what's attracting these animals to my property if I don't want them.
Well, I think that's
good. Yeah, good for you. That's the biggest solution, the best solution to most rodent problems. Good for you.
No, it's just mind-boggling. And you walk around like the mall near my house, and I walk around, and all of their garbage bins are wide open with torn open bags of garbage, and it's like, come on, people.
Wow.
So that is something that we can all be responsible for, properly disposing of our litter, properly disposing of our food waste, and making sure that garbage bins are closed up. And it's something that we all need to take responsibility for.
Yeah, I think that was an excellent answer.
Do you get any of the marine mammals, the seals and so on in, or do they go to more aquatic-oriented places?
The marine mammals are the only species that, well, the marine animals in general, are the species that we don't treat. So we're very lucky that we share our area here with the Marine Mammal Center, fabulous organization. They take incredible care of hundreds of seals, sea lions, and otters and others, I'm sure, every year. And they do a really, really spectacular job. Sequoia is going to have a mouse in front of us now. Okay, here we go. So they take care of the marine mammals, and we take care of everybody else. So we do, obviously, pelagic birds like the murres that are behind us, taxidermy versions, cormorants, etc. But the marine mammals, we send on to them. We do river otters, however. So if they will be doing the sea otters, but if we get river otters in, then we take care of them here at WildCare. Yeah.
Good. Excellent. Excellent.
Good. Well, let's take Karen Murphy Amorosa. Amorosa. Will owls eat smaller backyard birds?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
They're not picky.
They're not picky. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, and here comes another question about rodents. I think, Alison, I think, because you have a very sensible and probably unusual way of looking at least for most people, I'd like to bring up Shirley Hannon's point here. What happens if rodents come into apartments? So what will we do then?
If they, say again?
What happens if rodents come into apartments? You know, the horror of people in general. What do we do then when rodents come into apartments?
So like coming into your home, coming into your space?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is definitely a health issue. So you don't want to be living with rodents if you don't have to. And so making sure that gets solved is certainly something you want to pay attention to. So they're coming in because they're attracted to something. Very often you don't know what they're attracted to in your home. So the way to eliminate the problem is to, first of all, figure out how they're getting in. And mice can get into something a quarter of an inch wide. They can compress their bodies down sort of astonishingly, and rats can too. Rats can do a half inch. So they can get in through little tiny spaces. And I had a rat that got into my apartment, and he had gotten in. There was a little tiny bit of carving around the pipe that came in for my sink. And there was just a space about that big, and he had managed to squeeze his way in through that. So you want to figure out, and it can require crawling through all of your cabinets and paying attention to where you're seeing droppings. It can take a little bit of time. Figure out where the animal's getting in and seal it up. I'm a big fan of using the Stuff It copper wool, the metal, steel wool, whatever it is, and just cramming that in. There's no way a rat's going to be able to chew through that, and he's just not going to be able to. It's going to stop him in his tracks, right? So in a situation where you find out where they're coming in, you block that off, make sure it's a good, solid block so they're not going to be coming in. If you still have an animal in the house in that situation, sure, you can use a lethal trap and kill the animal, but why not use a cage trap like a have-a-heart trap and just toss him back outside? If you know for a fact that entry area has been sealed up, you're not going to have the problem any longer, and there's no reason to actually kill that animal. But definitely not something you want to do is live with rodents in your living space. So making sure that you find out how they're getting in, and there are companies that can help you with that, certainly. So it's you definitely want to deal with that. Helpful?
I think that's a very good answer, and it certainly is quite a difficult one. I just wanted to thank Sherry M and GoPro Creations for putting in some donations. I always appreciate that. That covers all the costs that I have. So thank you so much for doing that. I also want to say hello to Amanda, to Christy, Susan North, and so on, Jackie Porter, and of course my wonderful staff, Nicole. I just have to mention Nicole, of course, because she has been doing this wonderful connection to you and made this all possible. So thank you, Nicole. And also,
Nicole. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And thanks for jumping in when when everything broke down today, Nicole. When I accidentally went live without wanting it. So you saw me live earlier, and you saw my stunned face like Mr. Bean. That was me. Yes. So anyway. So thanks for jumping in. Well, you know what we can do? Maybe we'll take one or two more questions, and then I'll try and we'll do one live question that Alison, maybe you can ask one live question, and we'll try and get in a phone call. I hope the technology will work. I can't promise it, but let's give it a try. So let me take. Got so many questions. So let me see if I can. Oh yes, here Proud Cat Mama of 2 says, Alison and Melissa, of the raptors you rescue and care for, what are some of the injuries and illnesses that you treat?
That's a really good question. So you very often see raptors coming in with injuries for being hit by cars. If you drive along an open highway, it is super disturbingly common to see a barn owl on the side of the road. We think what happens with especially owls frequently is that they hit the antenna on a vehicle, and that would hurt like heck if you did that, right? So I think that's a pretty common injury. You find on highways that when the road crews trim the grass on the side of the road, that creates an area with lots of seeds and lots of tasty nibbles for rodents, and also an open area where they kind of run out and grab something, and the rodents are kind of running in and out of there. So you'll see birds hit by cars frequently. The other thing that we see a lot, and we're getting in this time of year at WildCare, is first-year raptors, so birds that were born this spring, hatched this spring, and they're making their migration for the first time. And for some reason, it's kind of right along the California coast. They all follow the line of the California coast, and it seems like here it's almost like they just fall out of the sky. They didn't properly prepare because they don't know how to migrate yet, right? Like I wouldn't either. What do you eat to migrate? I don't know. But they may not have gotten enough to eat before they left on their migration. They're not properly hunting along the path of their migration. So we get them in, they're emaciated, and they're very, very dehydrated, and they're just in really bad health. And so it's a pleasure for us to get a bird like that in that we can then fatten up and make sure they feel lots better, and then take them right back out to where they were found and get them back on their migration route. So that's another one. And then I think another reason we get a lot of raptors is the babies that fall out of the nest, and then we do our best to get those guys back up into the nest with their parents' care. And we
you showed an interesting map, and when I first saw the map, all of the Point Reyes area had but one point on it, and all the other points were over on the east side, and I thought, what's wrong? And then, of course, you corrected my thought. You were outlining where all the rat poison or the poisoned creatures were. But my suspicion is that you get a big percentage of your raptors from out at Point Reyes. I mean, there's so many out there. It's just one of the great wondrous areas of California.
There's not so much happening to them out there, right? Like they're not getting hit by cars as much out there. They're not really running into poison out there as much, and there just aren't as many people to find them. A wildlife care center like WildCare is very dependent on people finding the animals. So, but yeah, I mean, you talk about one of the most incredible natural environments to visit. The Point Reyes area in West Marin is just one of the best.
Yeah, we have two animal centers that were raised by humans.
I suspect one of the points there is really that the people aren't finding them, because there would be a lot of the raptors that also get into difficulty from incapacity to yet hunt effectively, because that's where a lot of them would end up, and they would end up becoming food for another predator. But you're simply not intercepting them. They're living in, and in this case, possibly dying naturally. I mean, that's just you're at least not getting road kills, which is I know is your biggest challenge. The same as for us here. It's the big killer of our eagles.
Another reason we get them in
is we have a few ambassadors here that were raised by humans. So they get imprinted. Our turkey vulture is 33 years old.
Wow.
And that's
Wow.
exactly what happened to him. He looks good for an old man, though, okay?
Yes.
He still got it.
Somebody thought a turkey vulture would make a good pet. Let's all say together, kids, do turkey vultures make good pets? No.
Was it the turkey vulture that was 33 years old?
Yes,
I didn't.
Yes.
Yeah, was it? Was
I
it?
wish
Okay.
I was 33, but no, it's the turkey vulture is younger than me.
Yeah, well, now finally I've got a very interesting, very current question, especially addressed at David from Mac Lady. I think it's very appropriate to address this. We are at the beginning of 2018 eagle nesting season here in Florida. We know that, of course. And we had Category 4 Hurricane Michael hit the peninsula, right? The Panhandle, actually. David, do birds flee the areas when the storm approaches?
There's a lot
great question.
Yeah, there's a lot of records of birds being seen avoiding the very severe hurricanes and tornadoes. They're flying in front. In fact, there have been, in the eye of storms, there have been a number of photographs of birds flying in that eye because it's, in some ways, part of it is calmer. And they're flying in that zone, trying to avoid being decimated. So it can happen both ways, but obviously birds get torn to pieces if they're in 150 mile an hour winds. I don't know how anything survives that. Our houses up here wouldn't survive that. Most houses don't. I mean, let alone the birds and animals. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to add anything to that, or?
We don't get a lot of hurricanes, so you probably do more than we do.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, well, that's fine. I see many more questions. By the way, thank you also for Osprey Mama from Florida. I hope you're fine there, but I don't think you're so far north anyway, but I see your comments coming in regarding the hurricane. So if anybody wants to put in some comments there, you're very welcome to add some comments to the hurricane as far as the current situation is involved. So all I can say is best of luck, because it's absolutely horrible. Okay, so let's go over to the fun section now, and let's do just one question. Okay, just do one question. Think of one challenging question. David, please be quiet. It's for them. You have enough challenging questions, I know, but yeah.
Well, I have one.
Yeah, that's.
We've mentioned it once, so if people were listening, or if they know spotted owls, what is the spotted owl's favorite food?
Okay, here you go. What is the spotted owl's favorite food? So there's your dial-in number. So I hope the technology will work. I can't promise it. I hope so. So I'm going to just get my phone here. And do dial in. So the dial in number is 425-223-4960. You can see it blended in the screen. So anybody from Periscope, Facebook, YouTube, you're welcome to dial in about the favorite food of the spotted owl. 425-223-4960. Here we go. Okay, so only one call today because we're running a little bit late. So whilst we wait for the call, maybe I'll put in one more question for you. Let's see. Oh, the imprinting, you just addressed it already. That was good. So let me see if we find anything else.
On that note, in the Wildlife Care Hospital, we do everything that needs to be done to make sure that animals don't imprint and become tame with humans. Because a wild animal that thinks a human is a friend, or a human is someone that provides food, or that humans are good, is a wild animal that's not going to survive very long. So it is an utmost priority in the Wildlife Hospital to make sure that the animals are released with a healthy respect and fear of humans, because it's you don't want an animal that thinks that humans are friends.
Yeah, I just see a comment, by the way, from Osprey Mama. During hurricane last year that hit my area in Florida, the birds just hunkered down because as soon as it was over, my red-tailed hawk and great blue heron, that's her, she does videos, I've just seen her today, she does these wonderful wildlife videos in front of her house, along with other birds, were back in the backyard. So that's her answer.
Found a place to hang out and shelter.
Like during really cold weather, or coming in Colorado, we would see that with all the raptors. You know, you could always really tell what the weather was going to be if you could watch the raptors, because if they're out, you know, and it's right before a storm, they're going to get as much food as they can, and then they hunker down. They hunker down for the next few days, and then when they come back out, you know, the weather's good. That's cool.
Very good. So I'll still wait for the phone call. If there's not going to be a call, it's either a technical issue or so. So let's see if we get one more question in, because it could also be on my side. Let's see. Territorial fights we did.
Battles.
Who would win?
Oh yes, is the owl making a sound? That's what she wanted. That is Mac Lady again. We see his throat moving, but we don't hear anything. I'm not sure whether she referred to a movie we were looking at or at your owl that we're looking at. I'm not sure, but maybe you can. Okay. Oh well. Okay, sorry, I have to answer this.
Okay.
Let's just see. Let's hope it works. Hang on. Let's hope it works. Hello? Okay. All right.
Technology.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
It's not an easy one. Answering a phone nowadays is not easy. It used to be easy, you know. Hello?
Hello.
Oh, hello. Who's there, please?
This is Maxine.
Maxine, you've had some incredible contributions today. Thank you so much. There were some great questions.
I guess I have an answer to the food for the spotted owl, which is kind of obvious, I think. I think it would be mice.
Mice?
It's not the one she suggested. I remember the one she suggested, because it's very different there in California than it is here. But she's in California, so she needs to tell you her
It
answer.
is a rodent, so you're 90% of the way there.
Right.
And I thought,
So would you accept that answer, yes or no? That's the you can be
I
critical.
feel like we can accept that answer. Yeah.
Yes, you could.
I guess I'll just have to give up on that one then.
No, you don't have to give up your lucky.
No.
It's your lucky day. It's Friday the 12th, not Friday the 13th. I learned that also. So
But in that part of California where they
go
are,
ahead.
it's wood rats, isn't it? That's a common.
Okay, Sasse, what do you want me to do? Hang on, or what do I do now?
You're going to when we're only going to do one question today, and you certainly deserve it, Maxine. You've always given generous contributions, great questions, and so on. We really appreciate that. So thank you so much. That's fine.
I'm a big pest.
A big pest? No, you're not a big pest. Come on.
Big fan.
Anyway, where are you calling from? I forgot where to ask.
From Tucson, Arizona.
Tucson, Arizona. Is it still very hot there?
No, it's in fact it's cooling down quite a bit, and we're due to have quite a bit of rain in the next couple of days.
Wow.
So, we're doing okay. It went down into the 40s at night during this week, so it's very, very pleasant.
Very nice. Well, thanks for calling, and thanks a lot. So just hang on for 1 second. I also want to show you something really nice. So just hang on, and then we'll spin the wheel. I want to show my friend David, and I might as well show this to everyone. He doesn't know what's coming, but I want to show this.
Oh, well, I'm excited. I'm
okay.
On the edge of my seat.
Okay. So thanks, Maxine. Thanks. Take care. Fine. Bye. Okay, so let me just bring my screen back on. Just hang on a second, because this is actually something I'm excited about, but I just have to see if I can find the file. I think Alison got a glimpse of it earlier.
Well, you're looking for that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Alison brought up a really interesting point, and that is that, well, it may be wood rats that the spotted owl features and really specializes in your area. It's a bird that covers a huge, wide range. So actually, it adapts to a whole wide range of different creatures, from voles and lemmings and related to lemmings, voles. Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting bird. Like a lot of birds, they adapt to whatever the local food supply is, and it may be quite different in one area versus another. Oh my
Don't
goodness.
say anything. Don't say anything. Okay. So I'm going to blend this in. Let me first make Alison and Melissa a bit small again. And then I will try and blend this screen in. Here we go. So, David, what are we looking at there?
I don't know. It's a funny looking bird, isn't it? Yeah.
Now, what is really amazing, let's see if I can get this rotating somehow, because...
oh, this is actually, and now I realize it.
It's not perfect, but it's the first stage.
Yeah.
So, David, you quickly want to say what we're doing here?
Well, I know what, I recognize this. This is actually a bald eagle, an adult bald eagle that is mounted, and I have it along with a golden eagle, which you haven't even seen yet. I have them mounted now up on the wall piece in my living room. I have this bald eagle and a golden eagle mounted, and they're quite marvelous. This one is, you went and took this and put it on a dinner spinning plate and took...
Yes, I did.
3D.
Yeah, well, I didn't do the 3D model, but I took a lot of pictures with my iPhone in the so-called burst mode, because I wanted to just show people what an eagle looks from all sides, what it looks like, because it's just so incredible. And yes, I then had someone make a 3D model out of it. So this is version 1. As you can see, the tail and so on is not perfect yet, but I don't know what you think.
It's not bad. I'm more in favor of the one that I have on my living room, because it's real. But
it's not a bad. I think the eyes are maybe a little bit big, but still, it's. I think it's a good start, right?
Yeah, it's a good start. There you go.
What do you think, Alison?
It needs a white tail.
Yes, the white tail is definitely missing. Look, this was done by, well, you can imagine, these are done by very clever 3D graphic persons in India and Bangladesh, and they probably have never seen a bald eagle before. And I think it's still remarkable that this is, the job. We'll correct it, and, I'll have them correct the head a bit, because I'll show you, let's see if I can find the original... there's your website, by the way.
My website, yes.
I wanted to show.
DiscoverWildCare.org. Visit us online, please.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So let me just also show. It's really important. Let me get back to the main. What a beautiful picture! It's a wonderful website. I also wanted to show you. There's something new every time. There's a new there's a blog channel and everything. It's so nicely done. So congratulations to this incredible
resources, patient stories.
Yeah, very, very nicely done. Well, maybe I'll skip this one. What I just want to go is to the spinning wheel quickly. Let me see if I can find our wonderful spinning wheel. Let me go into my Eagle News here. So what I'm going to ask you, let me just get this. This is supposed to be me.
Well, that doesn't look like you at all.
It doesn't exactly. I don't have blue eyes, but anyway, you may have noticed that. But we're spinning the wheel. Awesome. And you just have to say stop somewhere, and that's going to be the winning picture, okay?
And stop.
Okay, that's very nice. So this is actually a beautiful picture. This is one, this is a very nice picture. You can't see that in high resolution, but this was actually taken here at our beach. An eagle flying directly into the wind, flying directly into the camera. One of the many beautiful pictures. I think it was about 15, 20 feet away from me. It's absolutely incredible.
I want to
come visit you.
Yeah, and I'm
you can.
That's what I wanted. I wanted to interrupt with an invitation to your viewers.
Okay.
We're coming up. Our Bald Eagle Festival.
Yeah, here we go.
It's called the Fraser Valley Bald Eagle Festival, and it's on the 17th and 18th of November this year. It's always the third weekend of November, and we will get somewhere between 3 and maybe 15,000 eagles in about 4 miles of the river. Yeah, it's the biggest collection of bald eagles in the world.
Oh, and that would be
field trip. I've actually worked with 3 bald eagles and a golden eagle in my experience.
Amazing.
Well, you come up here and you can work with 3,000.
I've got an eagle and totally do that.
And if you come up, you'll love David's house. I mean, he's such a, I mean, he is so unique. And I'm just saying that if you see the birds that he keeps, the sandhill cranes and many other things, it's an experience that you won't ever forget. You know, I can say that. So, yeah. So you're very welcome to come and visit us. So that's very nice. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Fine. Okay.
Yeah.
So well, I want
wonderful. Good to have met you, ladies.
Yes.
Yeah. And congratulations, but particularly thank you for your dedication to all this, because it's not only helping these animals that you're helping, but you're helping educate the next generation of people who are going to care for more animals, and that's actually going to be a bigger impact. And wonderful. Thank you.
Why we love WildCare, because we really solve the problem from so many different angles.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so thank you so much. So just stay on the line for 5 minutes, okay? So I'll just say goodbye to everyone, and then we'll have a quick goodbye talk, okay?
Thank you so much.
And thanks so much for the effort. It was absolutely incredible. Okay, so that was Alison and Melissa. And really thank you for being here. So I'm just going to see if I can, yeah, I think this is fine. So I would finally like to say thank you so much to Sasha, Kevin, Susie, and Jenny for helping to organize this. Without you, it would be absolutely impossible. I would like to thank all the viewers for your dedication, and please spread the word about care for wildlife. And I think the word wild care is a wonderful word for an animal hospital, as we've seen. If you are in the San Francisco area, go and visit them. I definitely will go down to San Francisco in the next month, so I will pay them a visit. Which yeah, I will happily do that, and I would love to do a live broadcast from there, you know, because there's nothing. I mean, I love being in the studio, but there's nothing like being out there. Also, when I'm out with my friend David Hancock and so on, there's nothing like being out in nature, right? So, so thank you to everyone, and we'll be back in a. I don't know what's going on. I hope I'm not getting a feedback here. But I just want to say thank you to everybody for being here with us. And yeah, have a wonderful weekend. And we'll be in next Friday. Now I have to see how I can actually switch off all these channels, because I've got so many open windows. Yeah, I've never been on so many live channels before. So let me see if I can actually manage to do this. And I probably don't even know how to do this. So I'm going to switch them off one by one. Okay, that's it.